Edward Theodore Gein, also known as the Plainfield Butcher, was a murderer in the 40s, 50s era in Plainfield, Wisconsin, hence the name the Plainfield Butcher. Many believe that he was a serial killer amongst Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy, but that is just simply not true. Edward Gein was not a serial killer. He only murdered 2 people. 2. In order to be a serial killer, you have to murder 3. So, he was almost there, but not quite. Before we get into the Ed Gein case, please consider subscribing. I am trying to hit 450 subscribers before the end of January. I upload 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So something different for each day. Tuesdays, true crime. Thursday is a horror internet topic of some sort. And then Saturdays are usually a reaction. So subscribe, comment, like, talk to me, and let's get into it. So, on August 27th, 1908, Ed Gein is born in La Crosse, Wisconsin to George and Augusta Gein. Augusta Gein was his mother, and she was extremely domineering and religious. She had raised Ed and his older brother, Henry Gein, to be fearful of women, and they each believed that the world is sinful. Completely. Like, nothing good in the world at all. From the years of 1914 to 1915, the Gein family moves to a farm near Plainfield, Wisconsin, where the family would live in isolation. Augusta would forbid both of her sons from socializing with anyone. From the 1920s to the 1930s, Ed would go on to attend school. He was known by his classmates to be shy and reclusive. He did odd things, according to his teachers, such as laughing randomly. He performed adequately in schoolwork, but did not socialize with anybody. On April 1st, 1940, George Gein would go on to die of heart failure. On May 16th, 1944, a fire broke out on the Gein farm, which would later then kill Henry. He was found dead on the property under very suspicious circumstances, suspicious enough to make people believe that Ed actually did kill Henry. So, technically, if he did, he would be a serial killer. Henry was found bruised and beaten up, which usually doesn't happen when you die from fire. His death is ruled as asphyxiation, and everyone moves on. December 29th, 1945, Augusta Gein dies after a series of strokes. This is Ed's breaking point. This is, this is what does it. He's devastated. She was literally his entire life. She made it that way, so when she died, he had no stability at all. He boarded up her bedroom and living spaces, keeping them as untouched as if she was still living in the house with him. He would live in a room off of the kitchen in absolutely disgusting living standards. From here, his mental health declines, as we all would suspect. From the 1940s to the 1950s, Ed goes on a series of murders, but also grave digging. So, he was also obsessed with the Nazis and cannibalism and sex changes, so transgenderism, particularly the anatomy of doing so. He would begin exhuming corpses from local cemeteries, often recently buried middle-aged women that resembled Augusta. He would admit to taking body parts home, using them as souvenirs and trophies. A rough timeline of the murders includes 1947, 1949, he would grave dig Eleanor Adams at Plainfield Cemetery. This was the one that he usually frequented. A 51-year-old woman who had recently died, and he did take parts from her body. 1948, 1949 era, Mabel Everson. Plainfield Cemetery, again, died middle-aged. Similar appearance to Augusta, one of the first that he exhumed. And then we go on to 1951, 1952. He would go on to grave dig Clara Warden. 1951, 1952, Georgia Foster, Mary Watson, and Edith Dolezal. These were the graves that police had confirmed had been disturbed after Ed was caught. So what that means is parts of the graves were missing, parts of the bodies in the graves were missing when Ed was caught, and then the police did their investigation. The 2 murders that Ed would go on to commit, these were in fact in the Ryan Murphy Ed Gein show. That was actually the first YouTube video I ever put up. Go watch it. My thoughts are not positive. 1947-1948 era, he murders Mary Hogan, who was a tavern owner that he frequented because he would go in and chat with her and hang out, whatever. Her face mask was found in Ed Gein's house, and we believe that he would wear it. She was killed, not dug up. 1957, and this was only a couple months before he was in captivity, if you will. Bernice Worden, hardware store owner in Plainfield, found decapitated and hung upside down in his barn. Her disappearance was the one that would expose him. Police confirmation would go on between the years of 1957 to 1958. When police reopened cemeteries after his confession, they found 2 graves partially emptied with caskets disturbed. Human remains matching those missing from the exhumed graves were consistent with bones and skin recovered from Gein's house. Gein's descriptions match specific women buried between 1947 to 1952, nearly all middle-aged or older, resembling Augusta Gein in build and in facial structure. He claimed he only robbed fresh graves within 3 days of burial because the soil was loose. He did 9 successful grave digging attempts. And the purpose was to create a woman's suit so that he could put it on and pretend to be a woman. And he did make household items from human skin and bones. After 1952, he stopped grave digging because it became too hard for him to go unnoticed. And he, as an alternative, turned to murder. So that's when the Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden murders would go on to happen. Alternative to grave digging, murder. November 16th to November 17th, 1957, after Bernice's disappearance, investigators, including her son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Worden, searched Ed Gein's farmhouse in Plainfield, Wisconsin. Inside, they discovered a house of horrors. Bernice Worden's decapitated, gutted body hanging from the shed. Skulls used as bowls. Lampshade made from human skin. Chairs upholstered with human flesh. And female skin masks, which he would wear. Organs in jars and human bones scattered throughout the house. He would actually put the bones in his bedroom. Talked about this in the Dahmer show because Jeffrey Dahmer and Ed Gein do have a lot of similarities, except Ed Gein was not a cannibal. Gein was immediately arrested and taken to the Washara County Jail, where he was questioned for several days. Gein had initially denied killing anybody, saying that he had found the body parts in cemeteries. Under interrogation, without a lawyer present, which later caused legal complications, he admitted to murdering Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden, and he admitted to digging up around 9 bodies from local graveyards to make items and experiment with creating a woman's suit to become his mother. So he didn't want to become a woman, he wanted to become his mother. Sorry, it's been a long time since I researched this case. This was the first case I ever made a script for my YouTube channel, which was months ago now, so, I apologize. In January 1958, Ed Gein was declared legally insane and unfit for trial. He was committed to Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane in Wheelpen, Wisconsin, a maximum security psychiatric facility. So he did not rot in jail. He actually lived a very cozy life post-conviction. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, necrophilia, severe necrophilia, psychotic depression, and a extreme fixation of his mother, which I don't know if you need a medical diagnosis for that. He spent the next 10 years in psychiatric care, considered too unstable for court proceedings. After a decade of treatment, Gein's mental state was deemed stable enough to go to trial. So, 10 years after the fact, he did go to trial. November 7th, 1968, his trial began in Washara County Court. Gein waived his right to a jury. He was officially charged with 1 count of first-degree murder, that of Bernice Worden. Although he confessed to killing Mary Hogan, prosecutors focused on Worden's case due to the abundance of physical evidence. Physical evidence. So there was actually physical evidence of Mary Hogan too, i.e. her face skin. His defense would plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Verdict: he was guilty, but legally insane. Judge Golmar ruled that Gein had committed the acts, but at the time he was insane and incapable of understanding his actions. After the trial, Gein was transferred from Central State to Mendota Mental Health Institute in Madison, Wisconsin, where he would spend the rest of his life. He was described by staff at the hospital as quiet, polite, and cooperative. He worked as a maintenance man and a kitchen helper. He enjoyed reading, watching television, and engaging in simple conversations, often about farming and his mother. Other patients reportedly called him Old Eddie. He showed no signs of violence or agitation later in life, remained emotionally detached and delusional, specifically about his crimes. The post-death analysis included psychologists and criminologists later identifying Gein as a psychotic grave digger turned murderer, rather than a serial killer in the traditional sense. He was not into sexual sadism or thrill, but it was more like ritualistic behavior rooted in maternal obsession and grief. He blurred the line between life and death, attempting to reconstruct his mother from corpses. He was labeled a necrophiliac by psychologists and criminologists. However, he had denied ever engaging in the sexual act of sex with a dead body. He claimed that they smelled too bad. So he actually, I think, would have, but he didn't because they smelled too bad. He did engage in acts with the bodies, just not sexual ones. Investigators had found female genitalia, breasts, and vulvas in boxes and jars throughout his farmhouse. The truth versus lies list goes on and on and on because specifically Ryan Murphy's Hard, who released a show, and there was maybe 2 truths throughout the whole 8 episodes. So this was in fact the first video that I ever planned for my YouTube channel. 26 videos later, and I actually went out of my way to record it. So subscribe, like, comment, talk to me, let me know how you feel about Edward Theodore Gein. He's a weird guy. He's a weird, freaky guy. Okay. Well, if you're still watching for some reason and you're a new viewer, I do many things. I do true crime, obviously. I do reaction videos. I do Reddit stuff, but it's all horror, true crime related. So watch my last video, and then I'll see you on Thursday.